Hi, 8th grade. Today we're going to be working on lesson 8-2, which starts on page 480. And this is all about factoring polynomials. So we're going to do a quick review of the distributive property, but after we do that, we're really going to get into factoring and factoring out the GCF. Okay, so your gotta check is page 481. Number 3A, so that's what we're going to be working on. And your homework for tonight is page 483, numbers 15 to 26, and your bell ringer is page 479, number 66. So remember to write your 3 sentences. Okay, let's give this a shot. So the first thing I wanted to do before we talk about factoring is just do a little review of the distributive property, because factoring is the opposite of the distributive property. So let's remember what the distributive property is first. In this case, now that we've gone through chapter 7 and we've learned our rules for multiplying bases with exponents, we can apply that to distributive property. So for example, in this case, if I'm going to distribute my multiplication by 4x to everything in here, I'm going to start by distributing that into the first term. So 4x times x to the 4th would be 4x to the 5th. Why? Because I have one x here and an x to the 4th here, so that gives me 5 in total. Okay. Next, I'm going to distribute to my middle term, and this is a negative sign, so I'm going to bring down that sign right away. So I have 4 times 6 would be 24, and then I have a single x and x squared, so this would be x to the 3rd. And then last but not least, I'm going to distribute to my final term. So this is 4x times 2, and I'm going to put my plus sign in here. Well, 4 times 2 is 8, so this would be 8x. Okay, today's lesson is really all about how do we start with this and get back to the factored form where we have something factored out and kind of the leftovers in parentheses, okay? And this is what we're going to work on today. So in order to factor a polynomial, we need to find the GCF. And remember, the GCF is the greatest common factor of 2 or more numbers. So this is the greatest common factor of 2 or more numbers. Okay? And just as kind of a memory, all right, if we take 2 numbers, for example, if I took the numbers like, I don't know, 15 and 18, okay? If we had to split those up into factors, 15 is 3 times 5, and 18 is 3 times 6, okay? So in this case, the GCF would be 3, okay? Because that is the greatest common factor, or the greatest factor that these 2 numbers have in common, okay? What we're going to be doing when we factor out of an expression like this, okay, what we're going to be looking for, so your goal is going to be your GCF, which is going to go out in front of the parentheses, and your leftovers, so whatever is left out after you factor out your greatest common factor is going to go inside the parentheses. And there might be addition signs, there might be subtraction signs in here, okay? Sometimes we have a binomial, 2 terms, a trinomial like this one, 3 terms. It doesn't matter. The important thing is that this is our goal. So we're going to have our GCF on the outside and our leftovers are going to go on the inside, okay? All right, so let's do this, all right? So I'm going to be using this expression right here, okay? So let's take a look at all these terms. So first of all, I'm going to take a very quick look at the coefficients. So I have 4, I have negative or 24, and I have 8. I can see very quickly that 4 is a common factor, okay? So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to I'm going to factor out 4x to the 5th, and 4x to the 5th is 4 times 5 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you see how I've split that up? 4 times 5 x's, okay? next I'm going to split up my 24. Now, I've already picked out 4 as the greatest numerical factor. So I'm going to write this as 4 times 6. And then I have x to the third. So that's going to give me 3 x's. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Last but not least, I'm going to do my 8x. And I said I've already picked out a 4 as the greatest common factor. So I'm going to say that this is 4 times 2 times a single x, right? So this would work for all of these guys, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to circle everything in common. And it always helps, I think, if you start with the last term, okay? Because usually the last term has the least in common with the other ones. So let's take a look. I have a 4 in common with all of these. So that's one of my factors, okay? I also can tell that I have an x in common, but only one, right? Because there's only one x over here, so that means there's only one x in common. I have to consider all 3 terms together, okay? So now I am ready to do my GCF and leftovers. So I'm going to write this out, and I'm going to make these little blanks just like this so I remember. So my GCF is going to go here. And then my leftovers are going to go inside the parentheses, okay? And I'm going to put my signs in, so I have a negative sign and a positive sign, negative and a plus, minus and plus. I don't want to forget those, okay? So let's write in the GCF. So the GCF that I circled was 4x. So 4x is going to be my GCF. And then in my leftovers section, I'm going to write everything that's left over. So first of all, right here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 x's. So that's x to the 4th. Then my second term, I have 6 and 2 x's. So that would be 6x squared. Last but not least, in my final term, all I have left is a 2. Sometimes that happens, and that's okay. So all I have left with is a 2, okay? What you can see is when I've done the factoring, that matches what our first expression was up here before we did the distributive property. Okay, so let's try our gotta check. So your gotta check, I think, was problem number 3, so we were doing 3A. And let me take a look at it. So it was 9 x to the 6th plus 15 x to the 4th, and then plus 12x squared. Okay, it's time to stop the video. Come back when you're ready with your answer. Okay. Let's try factoring this guy out, okay? So I'm going to take a look at all my coefficients. So as I look at all my coefficients, 9, 15, and 12, I can see that 3 is a common factor, so I'm going to start there. So 9 is 3 times 3, and then I have 6 x's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a lot of x's, okay? Then 15x to the 4th, that is 3 times 5, and I have 4 x's. And last but not least, I have 12x squared, so 12 is 3 times 4, and x squared means that I only have 2 x's, okay? All right, so now let's start to circle what we have in common, and again, I'm going to start with my smallest one. So first of all, I kind of already determined that they all had the 3 in common. And it looks like they all have 2 x's in common. So I'm going to circle those 2 x's. Okay, last but not least, let's put in my GCF and my leftovers. And I'm going to put in my signs. Oh, super easy. I have 2 positive signs. That makes it simple for me, okay? So my GCF, 3x squared, because that's what they have in common. Then let's take a look at what I have left. So over here, I have 3 and 4 x's, so this would be 3x to the 4th. In the middle, I have 5 and 2 x's, so this would be 5x squared. And at the very end, all I have left is a 4, so plus 4. Okay, and this is my final expression, 3x squared times the parentheses, 3x to the 4th plus 5x squared plus 4. All right, it's time for homework. So homework is page 483, numbers 15 to 26. I think the first problems, you only have to find the GCF, so it's just good practice finding the GCF. Then the bell ringer, page 479, number 66, 3 sentences. All right, bye 8th grade. I will see you all tomorrow.